Thanks for watching this presentation on DeployExpert for Semantic Management Platform 7.1. DeployExpert acts as a technology that helps you better and more easily deploy Windows 7, XP, 2003 server, or Windows 2008 server. It greatly increases your efficiency, automation, effectiveness, and manageability of the process. We found in operating system deployment that classification, as we call it, is absolutely essential. It is the key foundation for your process manageability, automation, and efficiency potential. The better this step is done and the more meaningfully this step is done, the better the results of your output. Think of it like this. Computers are bundlings of devices, as you know, and wrapped by sheet metal, and that's what we call a system. Many different chips in there that require many different drivers, but regardless of what it looks like on the outside, the requirement of drivers that need to be blended into an operating system deployment event really is a function of what devices are there. And this is where we get into what we call the model myth. Now, just because two systems are the same model doesn't mean they have exactly the same devices on board. And if you've been around OS deployment very much at all, you know absolutely not. There's different video cards, network cards, sound cards that can just be ordered as options from your OEM, or you can start out with systems that are mainly identical, but they're changed because people are plugging things into USB or adding internal cards, especially in the desktop or even more so server environment. Or they can get changed by virtue of the fact that you had two systems that were identical, let's say a couple of laptops, and some component failed and you sent it in, it got a new RMA process motherboard in it, and would it really surprise you if it came back with a different NIC chipset that's newer? You know, obviously the technology marches on. We see this even in the guaranteed business line of systems that are the same builds. There's little things that change, especially when you consider non-standard devices that are not part of that model and peripherals and things like that. That's where knowing what platform a system is in is much more useful to both you and an automated process than guessing based on what model it happens to be. And that's what our solution does. It analyzes every single device on every single system and then takes all the systems that are under a model group and then breaks them down into groupings of systems that are exactly alike. Imagine how handy that will be. If you want to know how it improves your process, consider this. What if we took the concept of model entirely away from you? How would you approach hardware independent deployment? You wouldn't even know what drivers to start getting for your driver repository, much less what mapping of those drivers to different platforms. Obviously, it would collapse the whole thing. Well, our classes, as we call them, are what we wish model meant. They are what we need model to mean. That's basically homogeneous groupings of systems that are the same make and model, but also more importantly have exactly and only the same devices on board. Now, I only have one system in each one of my classes because I have a very small lab in this demo environment, but in your environment it would be absolutely normal, depending on the number of systems and how standardized they are, to have classes that may have, you know, tens, hundreds, or even thousands of systems in there. But the nice thing is each class is a separate group of systems that has a different driver requirement. And if you want to see why they're different, we have compare class features. For instance, we'll go ahead and compare these classes here. We have a concept of class A and class B. That's just arbitrary. So if we want to compare one class with another, we'll say we'll elect this class down here to be class B. So it's loaded that, and you're probably not super interested in see what devices match, but there they are, by the way. But this shows you the differences between the two, and you can scroll down and see why they are in different classes. So this classification becomes important over and over again to the process. And when you solve the driver pack requirements for an individual system, it would be really nice to know both for you and automatically to the process as actionable data what other systems are also deploy ready. And that's this color coding that you see on these classes. Green means go, red means stop. If you provide your own drivers and you want to override the deploy ready status, you can right click and set it as deploy ready. I'll toggle this one off and on, and that means that you as the administrator can vouch for the fact that that particular group of systems is deploy ready. Now a native driver set can be had from our solution by harvesting a sample system out of your class. So if we had a class here that had 20-30 systems in it, and one of them, even as little as one of them, had the operating system that you were interested in deploying, you could take that system and actually harvest it with our driver harvesting methodology. What you would do is you would elect it as a source computer. You would basically use the action panel to send it into the source computers list, and then go over to the harvest drivers node. Once it's there, you can select a system or group of systems and then trigger a harvest job from them by using the action panel. What that will do is use the connector to send a software delivery job of our harvest.exe over to the system in question. It will copy a set of the drivers while the user is using the system. It won't even bother them, and stream them back to the server. Now the neat thing about that is it's a plug and play, clean, zero touch deployment ready set of drivers, and their process is they go into the DeployExpert driver repository, so we make sure we're not getting redundant things in there. So they're single instanced so that the repository only has one instance of any particular driver, no matter how many classes or in fact models share that driver. We also allow you to add your own drivers. So here under the action panel you'll find you can do that, and you can also add executables, hardware specific applications, or applications that are actually driver installers if that's the format. So you can blend harvested drivers with plug and play ready drivers that you add in, and you can also supplement those with applications and treat them as a common management pool from which you can do deployment events. Okay, so this driver classification area down below the show all drivers driver repository shows you what drivers a particular class has. So we can see whether a system's been harvested or manually had drivers added, or applications, all three or any one of the three. You can select a class of system and see what drivers are assigned against it. You can also use the driver action panel to perform numerous actions to enable drivers, disable drivers, assign them, and things like that. Any driver you click on, you have a property area here that you can read data about the particular driver, the version, date, manufacturer, things like that. We also allow you to create your image, completely pack it with the sysprep or using the sysprep.exe and sysprep.inf for XP 2003, or the unattended embedded sysprep process in Windows Vista and newer operating systems. Once that's done, we allow you to create your deployment job. A standard deployment job is one style you can create, and what that will do is that will hit a image system with a follow-up task of depositing a surgical driver pack, just exactly and only what it needs and what's assigned to its class. The requirement of using that job against a system is that the profile under which you've created the job has to have drivers for it, and the system needs to be managed and under a green class, in other words. The other type of deployment job that you can create is an initial deployment job. What that does is that grabs all drivers that are common to a specific model and hits it with a wide spectrum model pack. That's great for servers who show up with no operating system, so that you can't classify them by an inventory action, or of instances of a model that are unknown. They're just not classified and managed yet, and that comes in very handy. One of the nice things is consider that if you ever use an initial deployment job and find out that oh, okay, I'm missing a driver for this modem or whatever device, you simply add the missing driver or drivers to the system you attempted to use it with, and then manually harvest the system once. And DeployExpert learns it. It's intelligent. The drivers added under both the class of system and its associated with the model as well, so that same initial deployment event also delivers those drivers. So it snowballs, and it can learn whole systems in one step. For instance, let's imagine a model you've never seen before. Simply unbox it, power it up, put the systems management agent on it, inventory goes up, and we analyze it, classify the system, we'll create a new model group and a new class group of one model. Will look basically like this in the system, and then you can quickly harvest that particular computer. You can add it as a source computer and then come to your harvesting interface and go ahead and trigger a harvest event against that. What that will do for us is it will quickly pull in all the drivers that are out of that OEM image that's provided with drivers, and let you immediately run your corporate standard image deployment job and return the valuable drivers, deploying not only that system but all the follow-ons. And you can use the initial deployment strategy to snowball and increase that driver set. As you get new systems that are classified as being in different classes, you can simply quickly harvest them, and that driver set increases its spectrum to handle more and more combinations of devices that show up under that system or particular model. Okay. Below that's your profile settings. Your active profile, we can see the different profiles that are in here, and we can create new ones. Your default profile will be the one created as a function of your wizard steps, but I've created a few more, and they basically allow you to frame and organize your deployment initiatives. As we discussed, here's the device filters that I mentioned earlier that you can set and turn on or off by the actual filter type. At the high level, all batteries, for instance, we ignore because you don't have to supply a battery driver during deployment. So key things that don't make a difference from a driver requirement during deployment, we probably have pre-filtered out, but you can edit the set of filters and tune it to your needs. You can also manage what are called individual devices. Let's say within network cards, you want us to consider all network cards, but there are a few exceptions to that. For instance, if we had a network card class that was a Cisco VPN adapter, we actually automatically filter that one out. But things that are software elements, you're like, okay, that shows up as a hardware difference, but I don't really want it considered. You can tune those elements if that's your desire. And the more checkboxes you add, the more types of things are ignored, the more or I should say less picky DeployExpert gets when classifying, and the fewer classes you have. So you have complete control, and you can also do custom filters where you basically can say filter out all devices that include these criteria, and it just programmatically runs through, and it will go ahead and add a filter policy. And then once you do that, you would save your settings. Okay. Your scope is basically where you choose your particular connection, and then just look through the computer collections and filters, as we call them in SMP now, and decide what set of systems you even want to bring into a profile for management. And then finally, your global settings involve the credentials that I mentioned earlier, the data repository where that lives for your driver repository, both for DX central authoritative copy and where we replicate it to a particular connection and system, and then what schedule we should synchronize those on. Okay. Finally, you have a licensing node in here, and that'll say what your DX licensing parameters are, and you can add new licenses in there. Alright, so that's the basics of DX. There's a lot of features in here I haven't gone over that are in here, but more exciting things to come. And watch for a video about our new driver management solution for driver update managing for running systems. That should be out hopefully later this year during the summer or early fall is our current target. Thanks and have a great day.